So Eileen, do your patients ever ask you about the results of clinical trials that they're participating in, maybe as they're going through it or after they've completed participating in it? And then the other question is, do your patients worry about confidentiality and privacy issues?
Yes, so a lot of patients will ask, when do we think the results will be available and how we're going to get that information to them. And I think it's our responsibility to ensure that we inform patients of what the outcome of a trial has been. They've, very kindly agreed to participate, so it's an obligation that we let them know what we've concluded from the study. And that happens in a number of ways. Sometimes it happens after big meetings where the information is presented to the oncology community, and then we're at liberty to talk and disseminate that information. It'll often happen when trials are completed that an update will be put on the clinicaltrials.gov website, which is a registry of all the trials that are active and underway, and also those that are completed. And the ultimate way is the dissemination through a publication and a scientific document that reports the outcomes of the study. And not so often, but occasionally patients have asked for that when that becomes available, and we certainly always want them to have it. Occasionally we see things in not such a good way when a study reaches an endpoint that we were hoping wouldn't happen, and we have to close the study early. And in that context, we'll often end up, as people come into the clinic, sort of informing them of the update of the study. Sometimes we'll need to get their written acknowledgement that they understand that they understand that we're closing the study and taking them off the trial and the reasons why that's happened. Sometimes it'll happen that we'll actually send a letter to a patient just acknowledging the outcome of a particular study, especially if it's a very large study and the patient may be free of their cancer and at a different setting in their life where they're not coming back to see the physician so often. So they would be ways that information is disseminated and communicated. And to go to the second question about their privacy and medical information and who has access to that. So as part of a trial, a patient will sign a disclosure that acknowledges that the study team, the physicians, the nurses, the data managers that are looking after them will have access to the information. Often the institutional review board will spot check and have oversight as well. The company or the body or the agency that's funding the trial will have access to information. The Federal Drug Authority, the FDA, can also have access to the information. Certain collaborating sites that may be involved in some of the other scientific aspects of the trial. So, for example, if a patient's research specimens are going to a lab in another part of the country, we'll need to list that lab and the principal investigator there that will be responsible for those specimens. So there are a lot of safety measures in place to try and protect privileged information as much as possible. That is, only people who only have reason to access that information have access to that information. And it's often in a separate part of the medical record where research documents are kept. So these are some of the ways that patient privacy is acknowledged and respected.
Sometimes I struggle a little bit when patients ask about what's the status or what are the results of a given clinical trial. Now, if it's a small study that we're doing just at our institution and I'm the principal investigator and I've been taking care of basically all of the patients and I kind of know, sometimes I might share with them in a little bit just saying we've seen some good results so far, but we're just waiting, we still need to wait to analyze all of the information once it's in. Sometimes when we're participating in large multi-center studies that may be nationwide or even global, the honest answer I have to give them is I don't know. As a study is ongoing, I might know what's going on with the patients at my particular site, but I don't know what's going on at your site or at other places, and we sometimes need to wait for those results to come back. I don't know how you feel about sharing information about other patients that you've treated in a sort of in an anonymous fashion with patients if they ask about that?
Yes, so it's a sensitive issue because, again, our obligation is to the person before us, but we also have to be responsible about clinical trial conduct, and sometimes early information is very premature information and can overread or underread a signal. So again, we always want to do right by the patient, but if we're clearly sensing that a study isn't going in the direction we want, then we have to try and come to that conclusion sooner rather than later. But it's hard, and where the line is as to how much information it's appropriate to share in the early phases of a study is sometimes a little challenging. And these days, I think, the social media, patients and families communicate, and it's surprising, I think, sometimes how much patients and families understand about what's going on in an active study, just because of people sharing their experiences or have been involved in a study or a related study. And I don't know if you've come across that, but it's
absolutely true. What I always try to emphasize patients, especially in those early phases, is the numbers are too small to either get too high or too low in terms of our excitement or disillusionment with a particular treatment. We don't want to base anything on just anecdotal information from a few patients. That's why studies are developed in a way to analyze it from a certain adequate number of people where we can really get a sense in terms of how safe and how effective it is. When they ask, oh, well, how are patients doing so far? I might say something more broadly, but really just remind them that it's still, too early for us to be able to tell.